Hi, it's Scott, ROCKFILE, back with another podcast review for your ears. Going to be talking about the 2018 film, Patient Zero. I saw the trailer for this a few years ago. It came out in 2018, it says. And I remember seeing the trailer, wanting to see it, never got around to it, didn't know if it popped up on a streaming service. One of those names you forget about. Completely forgot about it. Then I was doing that Hamilton book thing I've talked about in a few podcasts, and they had it for $2, and I'm like, I remember that movie. I looked up reviews. They were middling at best. But Matt Smith, Natalie Dormer, and Stanley Tucci, I'm in. So I picked up a copy of it. Came in today, and I actually watched it tonight because I had an hour and a half to kill. It's a little under 90 minutes, and it was entertaining. There's some pretty terrible reviews out there, but this is not a bad flick. If you like dark, it's not really a zombie movie, but dark zombie movies, this actually might be your cup of tea. That'd be the short version. Patient Zero was part of a bidding war. The guy who wrote it, his last name is Lee, Mike Lee. Screen Gems finally wound up with it. They're the company that made the Underworld movies, among others. And they hired director Stefan Ruzowitzki. He's an Austrian director. And at first, I didn't remember his name. But I've seen a lot of his movies, it turns out. German movies like Anatomy, Anatomy 2, The Counterfeiters, Deadfall, Cold Hell, Hinterland. He directed actually quite a few movies I've seen, and I didn't remember his name. And in 2017, 2018, he made Patient Zero. Photography was actually completed back in 2015. It got delayed. It got put on a shelf. It eventually hit streaming services, got a small theatrical window. I can find no details on budget. It got pretty bad reviews and didn't really go anywhere. It got a Blu-ray release. Sony put it out. No digital copy, no DVD, just a Blu-ray, which is kind of unique for them. There are absolutely no extras on the Blu-ray. Find the Disease, Find the Cure, Patient Zero with Matt Smith, Natalie Dormer, and Stanley Tucci. Big face of him on the front, by the way. Love him. So based on the trailer and the synopsis that I read, it sounded like a movie I would like. And it kind of... There's a good movie in here. Like, I feel like there might be more to it. Had they gotten to the Patient Zero part quicker, extended that part and maybe the end part and had less of the beginning, like there's 45 minutes of setup and then 45 minutes of non-stop. Wow. We could have had a little less setup and a little more of the wow. I've noticed I'm recently started watching 12 Monkeys, the TV series, and they took a character and made him kind of a thorn in the paw type character. He's always going to cause a problem. He's always going to have a bad attitude. And they just did that to the character to create conflict in the show, and I get that. As far as that character was concerned, it probably did make sense for him to go that way, but there's a character like this in the movie. He's a military guy, and he's just constantly a jerk to be a jerk. He's just... And Natalie Dormer's character is a scientist. She's smart. She figures out why he's doing all this stuff. But again, it's just like they had to add this conflict on top of all this other conflict. There's very few humans left. Okay, the story is a type of super rabies has wiped out most of the human race. These are the last people on Earth, and they're looking for Patient Zero to try and cure it. That's the setup of the movie. Like, there's 7 billion and counting dead or turned. They're not really zombies. They never call them zombies. It's this super rabies that turns them into more 28 days later kind of zombies. They're just murderous and homicidal, but they're all a little different. They're a little weird, and they can't process music, so it irritates them. It fires up this thing this rage they have in them until they meet Stanley Tucci, and that's halfway through the movie. That's what they play up in the trailers, by the way. I'm not really giving any spoilers away. He's on the cover of the movie, and from the trailer, you know that it's going to be centered around him, even though he doesn't show up for a while. I thought Matt Smith was good. I didn't know this was a British flick until it was over, and I looked up some stuff about it. Maybe that explains why he's playing an American soldier. He does good with the accent. I think he fits the role pretty well. But if it wasn't a British movie, we would have had someone a little more American soldier-ish than he is. Natalie Dormer's great. She's sexy. She's feisty. She's very smart as the scientist. And Stanley Tucci as possibly Patient Zero. He's great. I wish there was a lot more of him in the movie. Wish they did a little more with him by the end. They set up some interesting things. There's an interesting mythology that's set up here that when the movie ends, I literally was hoping there'd be a sequel or a series. If this ever became a hit on Netflix would make a sequel to it. I'm sure they would. It's a good setup for a sequel. So things I didn't like about the movie, there really isn't. I mean, it's dark. There's not a whole lot of. There's a little bit, and then that the comedic person gets taken out of the movie. It wants to be a little Walking Dead with some gut punch deaths and some serious conversations and things like that. But it's also trying to be a more military, a little more, a little more serious as far as this is the end of the world and we're trying to stop the end of the world from happening. That's why we're interviewing these guys. See, Matt Smith was bitten, but he never turned, so he can communicate with them. And they don't do a very good job of showing this. He begins talking to them in English, just talking to them, and we see everybody watching it going, what's he saying? But, well, we never really set up that they're speaking another language or grunts or growls. I guess when they first show him talking, it's a little bit of that. But for the rest of the movie, he just talks to them, and then he turns and tells people what he talked to them about. They didn't really try really hard to kind of mask that. So it makes, when we finally get to talk to one who's intelligent, I don't know. It's that part of it I think could have been handled a little bit better, but it's fine. Like the whole movie is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. The acting's pretty good, except for that one character who wants to be a jerk who finally gets his, or hers. I don't really want to give anything away. They play up some interesting ideas that they don't really fully explore. His wife is semi-turned, yet he has a thing going. Matt Smith's character, his wife is semi-turned, yet he has a thing going on with the doctor, and he feels for both of them. That is something they could have stretched out a lot more of, and I'm glad they didn't. I was kind of expecting them to. I mean, literally under 90 minutes for this movie, it feels like there was probably another 20 minutes or more in the film that was cut out to make it more exciting. And I got to say, the last 45 minutes, especially the last half hour, it's pretty nonstop exciting. It's well executed pandemonium and chaos. I've watched several movies of this ilk the last few years where a large group of people in an enclosed area kind of go crazy on each other, and this was a pretty good one. It's all staged well, it's all acted well, the stunts are good. The whole movie just reeks of maybe not fully completed, or maybe a studio played with it and took some things out. It just feels a little, I don't know. It's not disjointed because it tells it's pretty slickly told story. It just felt like there were some beats that could have been expanded on, some beats that weren't expanded enough on. I don't know. Just feels like there's a really great movie in there that we didn't get to see, but we got to see a pretty good one out of what could have been great. Maybe it's the editing. I'm not that much of a movie expert where I could pick that out of what we saw, or I'm not going to look up the script or anything like that. But if this was based on like a series of books or whatever, I would want to find out what happens next. I think it's definitely worth a watch. I've watched much worse things on Netflix on a Tuesday night, I don't know why. The reviews that really, really went off on it, I don't know. I've watched much worse movies of this nature, of this kind of movies, TV shows, and whatever that were not as well acted and well produced as this. I thought it could have been better, and it's certainly not one I'm going to, revisit every year because it's a cult classic or anything, but it's not the dog that a lot of reviews said it was. They were going for something here. They had some great ideas. They didn't fully bring everything home, but the movie does have an adequate ending that leaves a hope for the future even. I don't know. Patient Zero was a surprise. It was a movie I picked up for $2 for just something to watch. I really didn't expect much from it. I started watching it early when I got home from work because I had a couple hours to kill before I could do some things that are under a deadline that I can't start until a certain deadline. So I did have some time to kill. And so it was a movie I knew very little about, had never seen, knew no spoilers, something in this day and age, to find something you've never seen, you know how hard it is. You look through the streaming services and you look through the stores or whatever, and you go, I've seen that, I own that, I rented that, oh, I think I saw that, I don't even remember that. But, and it just, after 20, 30, 40 minutes of looking, it turns into a big blur. So it's nice to get a few movies that I ordered that were like, oh, yeah, I don't know much about that. And sitting on top, why don't I just watch that right now? Boom, done. Podcast. There you go. Yes, I should claim all these on my taxes next year, shouldn't I? Even the $2 Blu-rays. So yeah, I picked it up from HamiltonBook.com. By the way, I won a contest a couple weeks ago, right before Halloween. They were doing a week-long contest where every day they'd put up a prize. It was usually a collection of horror movies. I missed it the first 3 days or so. I think I was day 4 or day 5. And that day they put up the Supernatural TV show, all 15 seasons, the box set. It's worth about $225, $250. So they put it up and I entered. All you had to do was comment. So I commented. And they contacted me and said I won, and then they shipped it to me, and it arrived today. So I'm very happy with Hamilton Book. I've placed multiple orders with them this year. I discovered them from a Facebook ad. I've bought movies for as cheap as $1, hardback books for $1.95. I really like them. They have a flat $4 shipping rate. They don't pay for any of this. They didn't sponsor for any of this. Everything I've gotten from them I bought except for the prize. But it's funny, I also received one of my orders today. I got a package of 3 Chuck Norris movies for $3.95 on Blu-ray, 3 complete movies put out by MGM Fox. You can't find it cheaper than, $10 online. $3.95 for 4 movies. That's $1.33 a movie. Well, $1.32 for the one. And are they my favorite movies? No, but for $1 each, I'll review them. It's more fodder for the podcast, if you will. But Patient Zero, watch it for Stanley Tucci. Watch it because there's a really good kind of end-of-the-world zombie thriller in here. It has some tropes that it really didn't need. It could have elevated above. They could have cut out the jerk character and given us more with Patient Zero and had a much better movie. But all in all, it wasn't bad. Like I said, about a 3 out of 5. I've watched much worse. Check out Patient Zero. It's probably streaming for free somewhere. Scott Hamilton, I'm ROCKFILE. More podcasts are on the way. Thank you for listening. My links are below. Have a spectacular day.